What you call that noise?
The XTC Podcast.
XTClimate.com.
What do you call that noise?
What do you call that noise?
It's an odd thing with drummers because you can only talk to yourself, can't you? You can't talk guitars. You can't. There's only one of you. It's such a sad existence. I think that's why when you get like a load of drummers together, that's it. It's just you just indulge yourself, don't you? Yeah.
You've just been listening to Rick Buckler, the drummer of The Jam, who died aged 69 on the 17th of February 2025. And getting a load of drummers together is exactly what we did back in March 2018 when Rick kindly agreed to join a group of XTC fans to talk about Terry Chambers and a good deal more besides. Hello again, I'm Mark Fisher, and for the second episode in a row, I'm afraid What Do You Call That Noise? The XTC podcast is marking the death of a big fan of XTC. When I was putting together What Do You Call That Noise? An XTC Discovery Book, I arranged to meet Rick Buckler at the Tavistock Hotel in London in the company of several musicians, many of them fellow drummers. It turned into a tremendous conversation that covered everything from the Jam to XTC, from drum kits to musical influences. As a tribute to Rick, I'm revisiting the interview in this episode. But first, let's see how your musical creativity is faring with a song written by a listener who has been influenced in some way by XTC. This time it's the turn of Keith McTaggart, who recorded this song a fair amount of time ago, but as you will discover, has only proved himself very prescient. Here he is.
What do you call that noise?
Hello, Mark and fellow XTC Limelighters and friends. My name is Keith McTaggart. I'm a musician of no renown, currently residing in Truro, Nova Scotia. Truro is an interesting place for me. I've been dabbling in songwriting since the early 80s. Songwriting might be a bit generous. Making things up is probably more accurate. Since moving here from British Columbia a few years ago, a songwriting switch seems to have been flicked on. I think there are tendrils in the ether of old world Canada, and I've been lucky enough to tap into the odd one. This song that has been so graciously accepted for What Do You Call That Noise germinated right around the release of English Settlement. The riff and chords were certainly inspired by what I'd heard from Drums and Wires and Black Sea. I was obsessed with those records at the time. Originally called Contotal Troll, the song was pretty silly lyrically, and it went nowhere for me. I filed it away under Nice Try. Fast forward 40 years and my new friend Jim Owens, a fellow writer and part-time existentialist, introduces me to a songwriting challenge. The theme is Billionaire Bully. The bully we had in mind was one Elon Musk. We both did our own versions, pulling from and modifying the same set of lyrics. Jim's ended up being a bit of a sea shanty. I wanted mine to have a bit more attitude, say something like XTC. Then I recalled this old riff I had lying around and voila. Anyway, it's just me making all the noises on my Tascam recording desk. You may well hear I modeled the drums somewhat after making plans for Nigel, and I tried to get some clanky guitars going, a la Andy Partridge. I hope you enjoy.
I am a musk that you can smell on the breeze. I'll both give you hope and take you out of the breeze. I'll buy up your startups and turn them around. With a flick of the wrist, I will run underground. If I see profit, I'll shoot for the stars. And all of your children will end up on Mars. Billionaire boy, do what it takes. Brains of a Newton, heart of a snake. Billionaire boy, love to be rich. Billionaire boy, I'm a son of a bitch. I suck on the fingers of the hand of fate. The only key way lives the private state. With all of the promise and others run dry.
Thanks very much for that, Keith. Very, very timely. If you have an XTC-inspired song, feel free to let me know at mark@xtclimelight.com, although it will be a few months, I'm afraid, before you get to the head of the queue. If you've been enjoying What Do You Call That Noise, the XTC podcast, remember I wouldn't be able to do it without the support of the lovely, lovely XTC fans on Patreon. Many thanks to all of you, those of you who've contributed. And if you'd like to do the same, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/Mark Fisher and decide on your level of support. There are 3 levels, and if you opt to be a knight in shining karma, I'll read your name out at the end of each episode. I've already mentioned What Do You Call That Noise, an XTC Discovery Book, which includes some of the material you'll hear in this podcast, plus much more besides. And you can buy your copy at xtclimelight.com. where you'll also find details of all the podcasts. So let's go to that interview with Rick Buckler. He, back in the day, was recording sound effects with the Jam at the same time as XTC were working on Black Sea. And indeed, he ended up joining in with the clapping on Don't Lose Your Temper. Buckler had a lot more than that in common with XTC's drummer Terry Chambers. They were both born in 1955, 5 months and 64 miles apart. They took up the drums and joined their first bands in the early 70s. Then, in 1977, they played on their debut singles, Buckler on the Jam's In the City, released in April, Chambers on XTC's 3D EP in October. The parallels continued all the way to 1982, when Terry said goodbye to XTC and Paul Weller disbanded the Jam. Joining Buckler around the table in 2018 were musicians, including Mark Thomas, the designer of the book cover of What Do You Call That Noise, Andy Rankin, who was conveniently in the UK over from Australia, Laurie Langan and Sarah Palmer of Fascine, and their producer Rohan Onraet, and arriving a little later in the interview, Louis Barfe, who's a journalist and author. Apologies if the recording gets noisy. It wasn't designed as a podcast, so please forgive the background intrusions. I'm sure you'll find it fascinating either way.
What do you call that noise?
And the reason for bringing you all together is a celebration of the work of Terry Chambers over the first 4 XTC albums. But I think particularly with Rick here, I think it's fascinating that your career in the Jam almost identically matches in terms of time what XTC did. Because Terry left about the same time the Jam split up, and I think they started 72, you started 74 or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I was always quite envious of XTC because they weren't like they weren't put in the same pigeonhole as punk fans. Do you know what I mean? Because I think they were a bit more arty, or regarded as being a bit more arty than now. We always had to sort of fight off this sort of flag that, being under the banner of punk, which we didn't really like because we felt that we were a band in our own rights. But I think XTC never seemed to sort of fall into that trap. They always, they
rode it, but at the same time didn't kind of get held down by it, did they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, when people used to say, the Jam, you're... No.
I just thought of you as a mod band, really.
Well, yeah, but...
Only because of the look.
It was the press thing, really, wasn't it? That everybody had to be pigeonholed.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even the punk thing was quite a minor thing of what was going on. There was so much talent at the time. So many bands around coming out of that era that I think they just sort of simplified it by saying, then it became New Wave, and it became something else. But we were striving ever so hard to sort of create our own identity, and I think that's what I was trying to say about XTC. I think they had their identity pretty much. They stuck to it. They weren't swayed by commercialism, let's say, and they said this is what we want to do. I think in that interview they was on Sky Arts recently. I think that came across quite well.
See that one on Sky Arts? You might have come across it.
I only watched it 4 times. That's not even a joke. I know it's the exact moments that we appear.
I've seen this.
I think in this period as well, a lot of bands were undervalued. As like it was cool to be not very good at playing their instruments.
I know. I used to be annoyed by that.
And the list of people that sort of came out of punk and became new wave bands, they were all fantastic players. Great drummers in all those bands, I think. And
You don't have a good band without a good drummer, see? So
I agree.
let's start with that one.
It
is true.
It's absolutely
Building a house, I mean, you want decent foundations. I think it's very important. So it used to annoy me that you say, there so-and-so, the Pistons, they can't play.
Yeah.
I saw the Pistons play, and they were absolutely fabulous.
Yeah. Good drummer as well.
Yeah.
Solid as a rock.
Yeah.
No, there was so many good musicians that were kind of undervalued, I think, because it was seen as sort of.
And the other thing about, especially with XTC and Terry, was the fact that it was well produced as well. It had the support of a great producer. I mean, it really sounded strong. It wasn't just played strong. I mean, the sound was portrayed, which I was again very, very envious of, because drums wasn't a big thing in Paul Weller's life. Do you know what I mean? As far as production and what have you. I mean, his thing was songwriting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for people who worked with us, Vic Smith in particular, who really spent time over that, I'm sure we would have skipped over. Oh yeah, Box, this was getting this done. Do you know what I mean? Because that was, my memories of the whole thing is it's a hell of a lot of rushing around, getting stuff recorded so that we could get back on the road, and then it was just 100 mile an hour. But I don't even know. I can't even remember what STC album they were recording, but they were in Townhouse at the same time as us.
Yeah, I know, because I mentioned
drums and
wires. I mentioned it to Andy, and he said that he remembered you sort of coming in and out of the studio. I didn't say what album it was.
No. I can't remember.
It might have been Black Sea.
Well, Black Sea was Townhouse.
Black Sea was Townhouse.
The documentary.
That's right. Yeah.
Where you talk about
There
drum
might
sound
be Black Sea actually.
That was the really big drum sound that all of a sudden Steve Lillywhite got.
And Hugh Patton was on that as well.
Both those. They love Townhouse, because Townhouse was a great studio to record them.
I think Patton was in-house at Townhouse.
I think you might be right.
The engineer. Yeah.
They had a great stone room as well, which was brilliant for drums.
That is Phil Collins.
Did you get to? Was that
we did some recording there while he was doing all of that stuff. Do you know what I mean?
At Mark Knopfler's studio in Chiswick, he's got the original Ball and Biscuit microphone that is basically that Phil Collins sound, that drum sound, which was housed as a talkback.
Terry's selector of all sorts of recording.
Phil copied him.
It's Guy Fletcher, the keyboard player. He's his sound engineer, isn't he?
Oh, right,
And
okay.
he pretty much runs that studio, I think.
Well, Townhouse is gone now, I suppose.
Yeah, not Townhouse, but Mark Knopfler's place.
Oh, yes, yeah.
He's got a studio.
British Grove, that's right, yeah. Amazing place. I've done a couple of recording sessions. It is amazing. I think the best studio in London. Yeah. I've heard that there is a vault underneath the studio.
There is.
Which has all his guitars in it.
Oh,
and
okay.
In the event of a fire breaking out, the room seals itself with full of carbon dioxide. So anyone inside is...
Guitars are okay. Guitars are fine. You did.
Guitars and cockroaches.
Yeah.
So how early on were you aware of XTC? Were you playing like before?
Well, I got into
before
it
you got
with drums and wires.
Yeah.
So I didn't really. So I had to retrack my paces, if you like, to pick up what was going on before.
Because you would have been touring at the same time, but probably
So I never got to see them play live.
Yeah.
It was purely off of records.
Yeah.
That I got into them. So from the distance, I suppose. But you don't, when you're touring yourself, you don't see other bands unless you're doing festivals and things. You're just every Saturday night you're busy. So when they're busy, you're busy somewhere else. You know, it's just one of those dilemmas.
Was there a competitive sort of thing going on, do you think?
No, not really. No, I mean, I think we used to get a lot of it through the press about, this lot sold more records than that lot.
Yeah.
You know, and but you just don't believe any of that stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, when Andy told me that you used to pop in when you were at the same studio, I thought that was
so, why isn't that reported?
I was ear rigging. I wanted to find out what they were doing. Got any new ideas? Writing things down.
What would you have been recording then? Was that sound effects then?
I might have been saying songs or something.
Drum sound, wasn't it, on that? I think that's...
I think it was because of Vic Smith that and that great stone room that made a difference. But it's not an upfront thing like XTC had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, drummers are like,
I remember
more drums in the mix. You know what I mean?
the single of News of the World. I remember going out and buying that, and that's a great drum sound on News of the World.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I do.
I really didn't like that.
Did you?
No.
I'll have to listen
It all
to
sounds
it again.
too dumpy, you know. Well, maybe I'll listen to it again.
There's lots of nice round the kit stuff on there that really.
That's what grabbed me, that sound effect. It was the drum sound. That's what the first Jam album I really went, yes, because the drums were really crisp on that.
Yeah.
Like, I love the sound, which is where the XTC comes in, because the drum sound on Drums and Wires is really fantastic, and then takes to the next level on Black Sea as well. And my daughter calls me a production stomp. Dad, you're always going to make drum production. The drums sound fantastic. They do, and you can really hear where, you know, what Terry's doing on everything. Like the hi-hat, the way the hi-hat's recorded, just really drive everything really along nicely on both those albums. Yeah.
He's really muscular for a little guy.
He is, yeah. Yes.
It's surprising.
Yes.
His
Yeah.
stature.
Well, that Towers of London, like he's the bloody navvy. He's like a bloody navvy on that. Really, like he's digging that trench. He really is.
With drum sounds, when you're recording them, I mean, I've done a little bit of recording, and usually it sounds crap in your headphones, and then you put all the effects on afterwards. But did you insist on a good drum sound while you were playing? Because it does affect things. Yeah.
I don't know,
Because
you know,
if it
anybody would
sounds
say that. If
horrible,
it sounds great in your headphones, it's like inspiring. You think, oh, this sounds
Especially when you're
absolutely-
singing, more so when you're singing. Yeah.
Half the battle is the performance, though. Like, my job is made so much easier. A great drummer who knows what he's doing, hits it consistently.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
It's half the battle.
But you know what I mean? If it sounds terrible in your cans,
Yeah, you're not really motivated.
Do I hit this again? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
Then it does take the edge off it. But if it sounds fabulous to start with, I think that's a real sort of incentive to.
Yeah, definitely.
I think especially with toms as well. If they sound lovely, rather than, you know, go round the kit, if it just one accent with a tom, you know, and a hi-hat or something, that's enough, you know, because it sounds so good, rather than just filling the whole thing with, you know, round the kit fills stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started playing, it was all about that. Like, how much can you do? You get as much in as you can. Another 12 feet in that far flip.
Did your wrist ache? Because you did drum fast and stuff, didn't you?
Yeah.
It was the thing to do then.
We had to keep it up with the other two. I think we were all chasing each other's tails at one point, you know, it was bad. I can imagine, yeah.
It's that feel on senses working out, Tommy. Just a stack.
Yeah.
I love it. I've replayed that any time.
Yeah.
A little bit where they just give them a little bit of lead.
Yeah.
To go, okay, just feel.
So there's lovely space around it, you know, so that you can actually hear what's going on, I think was...
And it does them differently each time as well.
Yeah, it's like something falling downstairs or just careful out.
I wonder how much, because Andy's very, you know, he can play the drums really well, but he can't use his feet. He said to,
I didn't know that, didn't I?
yeah, because his dad was a drummer with trad jazz bands and stuff. So, you know, he grew up listening to his dad playing drums and stuff. So Andy's really good with his brushes. He uses brushes beautifully, you know, he's really good. But he can't syncopate with his feet. I know, it's like passing your driving test or something.
Even when you listen to it, it's all this. There is this metronome going on.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of
It's
it
the
is...
syncopation, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not... There's not a lot of real snare drum, bass drum patterns going on. You know, I mean, it is all top end drum kit. But yeah. I think that's the strength. I think that's nice in a way. It wasn't boring. It wasn't like somebody was just sitting, you know, banging it out. I mean, I think there's a lot of thought, I think, going behind what he was doing, which is what I liked about it, because there's plenty to listen to, plenty of stuff to be inspired.
Yeah, well, that was it. Burning with Optimism Flames, one where he did get creative on that. He plays like the hi-hat. He goes at a half time in the verses, so the snares on 3. Yeah. He does these little C stink does in the hi-hat, and then he just goes into a straight sort of rock beat in the region of the chorus. It's really, but it's really simple. It's like parts. He wrote parts, part for the verse, part for the chorus, part for the bridge, and didn't really vary off it too much. But he was interesting enough. That's cool. I asked him to play along with it.
But tell me what you didn't do. You didn't use the ride cymbal.
Did you use ride? Was that a thing then that it was seen as too prog rocky to go on to the?
I don't know. I mean, being a 3-pick, you tend to try fried.
Do
you know what I mean? Yeah, but there's because there's so few instruments live.
Yeah.
So that's what I think you tend to do. But I mean, it's because when as soon as you go onto the hi-hat, it just makes it so much tighter.
Crisp.
And if you really want to sort of make it a bit more splashy, the ride can come straight in. But it's best to be live. I mean, that's what we based everything was around the live sound. We didn't really think too much about the studio thing too much. We just sort of went.
Did you go in and play live?
Yeah.
So did you have the song sorted out in your head, like what you're going to play? Or was it kind of like a rough idea for the verse right over the chorus? And
I really didn't like the idea of going into a studio and trying to then create something. By the time you've taken it out on the road, you've got all the quirks ironed out. You think, I wish we could go back and record it now. Now we're so much better. Do you mean when you sort of come up with a song and then 10 minutes later it's on tape, and you think, well, I'd much rather we work this through a bit more and get rid of some of this rubbish, get some better fills in there. I mean, oftentimes Paul would suddenly decide, I'm going to stick an accent in there on the guitar. Oh, that sounds great. But they've already got the drum part done, you know what I mean? So you feel committed. Can I go and put an accent on there? You go, no. This is the beauty of the digital recording these days, that you can go back
edit.
But I think things are too perfect, and I think that way is extinct now.
For Scene's drummer Jim, I generally tend to play the sort of rehearsed version, and then we do a couple of passes of just going wild, just going whatever inspiration, whatever it feels like doing, just get adventurous and see what beautiful accidents occur.
Do you ever listen back? Not regret, but go. Is there a part you get to it in the start?
Only I would know this.
Well, that's the thing.
Other people don't see it because they don't, so it doesn't.
But you're the most important person in your own head, aren't you? So you go, I listen to something and I go, with some songs, and go, I wish I had not done that, or wish I'd have done
something else. Yeah, that's right. Because you
don't. I'm happy with whatever we did at that moment.
Because you're an egomaniac. Everything you think is perfect.
No, I think we chose, and it was right at that moment in time. Like it doesn't. I never look back and then go, wish I'd done this way. But I like the stories about how you record like that, because, like I said, it doesn't exist anymore, and you don't have bands. Well, firstly, you don't have bands that can play live anymore. I mean, we go and play what we create in the studio. It's so vast. We go and play, but I'd love to be able to one day record like that, completely live.
Yeah. Just go, just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way we learned. That's the way that we approached everything.
Yeah.
So the studio came as a sort of second skill, if you like. I mean, Deep Purple, for instance, I used to read about things when Deep Purple used to go to the studio for a day, record something that they'd been playing live, then go back out on the road, then go back into the studio.
Right.
By the time we got into doing studios, they say, right, you got a month? Do the album, and you do everything in that month. So some songs were ready to go, and some songs needed, writing and in the studio. So, and I used to really think, well, now, let me just stop recording, take it out on the road for a bit, and sort of try and think this through. I mean, when you listen to XTC songs, it seems like, I don't know, it's probably an outsider's view, but it's lovely to listen to it in this way, that you think they've got it right from word go. You don't see all of the baggage that went along with putting it together. Do you know what I mean?
Do you have to be still the same as you about should have more time or more?
I think everybody does when you record something. Especially you can look back 40 years or something. You think, I wish I'd done it differently over, or I mean. We did 2 live albums of any note. The first one was rubbish because we were put together in a real rough and ready fashion. The second one was much more thought put into it. But when you listen to the songs played live, that was really our forte. They are so much better than some of the studio versions. And it's got that life. There's nothing stripped out of it. It's not layered or overdubbed or cut up or joined or anything like that. It's just, that's how it is. And it's just got that lovely sort of feel to it, So, but I feel that, going back to this thing, I think I feel that more than anybody, because you think, well, I know how it could have been. Yeah. And it was sometimes, but it wasn't on the night that we actually recorded it. Do you know what I mean?
You sit up the back and just go,
agonising over future. Your legacy. But I love the live album side because that's for me. That's the big memory of it all. I mean, I was actually gutted to find out when XTC stopped playing live.
So I thought it's pretty much when Terry left. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, well, now I've got a chance. Now I'm not, maybe not doing quite so much. I'll get a chance to go and see it. And hello, too late, mate. Or joined it, you know.
It's a space free.
But then you got the wonderful studio albums, so you got best of both, haven't you?
Yeah, and also there's a mystique, isn't there, that when it stopped there, I think they protected a lot of that legacy and stopped particularly Terry. It's perfect. There's nothing bad. Nothing bad. Every note is right. It's stopped.
Yeah.
And it's like the Smiths. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Because you're protected now. You are. That's it.
Yeah.
That's done.
Terry was astonishing. I saw them twice live. It was astonishing to watch live. People would just go to see, they would go to XTC just to watch him because he was just this force of nature. And
he was so muscular. And
it was just like you could wind him up and he would just go if they came with you.
He looked very angry all the time. No change of expression.
He was a bit drum like this.
Yeah.
With his very high sticks as well. Though we were watching a gig the other night. Very high. I don't know if it was needed.
That's because he was. He'd have his hi-hat quite high because he'd have to get underneath it because he'd accent, something like Millions. If you listen to the drumming with that, where Andy calls it pea souping, the sort of reggae skanking rhythm. But Terry wasn't happy just to do that. He would put, hi-hat chokes in and accents on the toms and stuff. So he'd be, he'd go underneath and, so he'd need that space.
Yeah, I think that's what it does. If you raise the hi-hat up, it gives you the hand underneath space as well. Yeah. You don't want to be, saying earlier about encroaching down on the kit.
Yeah.
If you're too close to it, it's not comfortable.
No.
I never found it.
No. And there's an amazing confidence if you look at the footage. The band don't need to check Terry. It's just there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see a band and there's always a little kind of weird frisson of not.
What are you doing there?
But it's just like just let him get on with it. That he's going to do it, and Terry's just in his own little world. It's like this weird little barrier.
I think that's the same with all of them. They don't need to rely on anyone.
Yeah, Dave's doing his thing. Don't need to look at it.
Yeah.
Everyone's so confident, and it fills you with confidence. So you can sit back and you're not going. You just know it's going to be. Brilliant.
You saying about Dave, actually, there's a lovely live recording at Hammersmith, which I think I might have been at the gig, actually, but they would do it. It was Burning with Optimism's Flames. There's a lovely jazzy guitar solo in that. Yeah. And Dave threw in some extra notes and twiddly bits, and you can hear Andy going, "Way!" It's in the mic. Yeah. You can hear him. Yeah.
Was he happy with it, or was it kind of?
No, he loved it. Yeah, he did. Yeah, it was just So it wasn't all. So there was room to do things and start.
But when you're that good, there's so much more space. With a really good band, you can do things like that, and you're always going to fall on your feet.
I think some of it is to do with playing with the same people for a length of time. You tend to know if somebody starts to go a little bit off piste or something, you can follow it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Right. So it doesn't sound like it's, because you just know that what they're like musically. And I think that was something that we had. We've been together for so long. Do you know what I mean? It was, we musically evolved with each other. So if Paul was going to just go off on one, you just follow on. And it was just intuitive. We didn't have to worry about, where's he going with this now? Do you know what I mean? Or anything like that. So
do you find that good, or do you find that limiting?
No, I think that's really good. I think you build a sort of musical relationship with people, don't you? And if somebody decides that they're going to go off and do something else, I mean, we would often, I'm sure a lot of bands do this, you have a sort of an area in the song, if you like, where you may extend it for some reason or other. Do you mean? I'll tell you what, we've had enough. No, it's not. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So there'll be it's not necessarily nods and winks, but there'll be little musical devices that come in and say, right, we got to the end of the song now. And then just go, and without even thinking, it just happens. And I think that only comes through experience of playing with the same people, for such a long time. And you get that feeling that all the parts of XTC just locked together beautifully.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anybody fighting anybody else.
Yeah, we said that yesterday. There's a gig that we watch all the time online. I think it's called Puck Pop. It's in the Netherlands. It's like a 20-minute set of unbelievable songs. And I think one of the reasons why you mentioned earlier about Terry not continuously filling, or anyone not continuously soloing, means that none of the musicians are ever going to be looked at as, oh God, it was unbelievable, because none of them are completely showing everything they can do. But then they fit so well together, and everyone gives space to everyone else. And that's why, unfortunately, you're never going to get partners on the front of bloody guitar world or drummer world, because no one looks at them as being a brilliant guitarist or a brilliant drummer. But they are. But they never go, fucking hell, I'm so amazing. But they are individually, and that gig, there are moments of the gig of brilliance on every single musician. But unless you're looking at it, you don't,
I mean, I think that's really important, that it's a band is some of its parts, isn't it? I mean, if you start taking bits away from it, for some reason or other, it doesn't work. I've seen it a lot with fans over the time that Mooney died, and I went and saw the Who play. It wasn't the same band. It just wasn't. I mean, even though it's three quarters there, it still wasn't the same band. Well, there's probably countless examples of that.
You can't imagine the Beatles without, Ringo. And he was castigated as being, not a very good drummer. But I can't imagine anybody drumming with the Beatles.
Just somebody not sound that's unbelievable. I say unbelievable in a technical sense. If I wouldn't have fitted anyway. So.
But it's what you said about all those parts together, and I think Terry played parts beautifully. He did those parts, and
I mean, understanding giving a bit of support for Ringo, he always made the song work. Whatever he put in made it work. He wasn't showing. No, exactly. I think that's a real skill.
I think so. There was some of the minimal parts that he played were so good, just little patterns on the hi-hat that he'd leave out something and you'd notice what he'd left out rather than put in. I think that was such a clever thing.
You always mention that you think people's limitations often make them great. So whatever it is, a writer or a singer, because you don't know every single element of your instrument, it means that you choose different things. And that you say that, as a drummer, he might be limited in some things, but that makes him perfect for that band.
Yeah, Tom Waits is one of the best pianists. He's a terrible pianist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, just because you're the greatest at your instrument doesn't make you a great writer.
Exactly. And choosing the right things to write. Because Laurie, you listen to, unbelievable pianists. Like, you play with pianists all the time. And the point is, if we're going, in terms of how it makes you feel, your piano parts make me feel more than somebody who's way more technically advanced.
Don't have to take that, really.
You should take it really well.
Yeah, rubbish for your nuts. That's the nicest way.
It's a sword.
Comparing it to bloody Langan. Not like that. What you choose makes me feel is more than Langan. For me, it's better than a Langan. And that's how I feel, It was a derogatory. He's a shit pianist, but he comes up with some art. That is not true. To paraphrase. It's not true.
I played an originals band in Sydney, but a bit like R.E.M., but their main drummer went overseas for a year, so I filled in. And he was sloppy as all hell.
Right.
But fitted the band perfectly.
Yeah.
When I listened to recordings, I went, that sounds brilliant. Then I listened to recordings, and I went, I sound like shit compared to him. I know I'm a better drummer technically, but he had the feels. Like, Ringo was a lefty. I'm a lefty as well. He played lefty on the right kit. And they give a certain swing, and which, is a limitation. It actually is a limitation. But he worked around it, and you get that great Ringo sound.
Metronomic drummers that do something to me that rubs me the wrong way slightly.
It works.
I can always hear a session guy. I can always hear a session.
But there's a place for a session guy, or a gospel drummer.
When you're on a budget, time scale, but when you're in a cohesive family, like a band, you need guys who do have a certain amount of limitations. Guys from the street, or guys who cobble together a drum kit or taught themselves. They're usually the best drummers.
Yes.
I think a kid in the streets of New Orleans is a way better drummer.
Yes.
I think you have to be a lot more inventive when you bump up against a wall and you think, well, I can't do this. But there is another way of doing it. And you just find other avenues. And you so almost that limitation has guided you down a path which you probably wouldn't
Because you have no choice.
No,
Well, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, but you have to be more inventive about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So nothing comes easy. It's just, so, I've struggled for my music. Now it's your turn. That's sort of, but no, I mean, you know what I mean? I think that I found that a lot. You think, well, you listen to people like Ian Pace, how fabulous they are, this and that. And you think, I want to do that, but I can't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you find other ways of doing things and
Of being brilliant.
Well, I don't know about that. You think, well, how can I get away with that? Do you know what I mean? How can I make it sound like I'm doing this, but I'm doing something else?
But only a good musician would understand why someone with those limitations was also brilliant. As someone who's not a true musician, who thinks that only an unbelievable drummer is good, would never recognise the Terry Chambers anyway. And then it's not those people that go like XTC. So,
Terry just has this kind of quiet.
He's raw, isn't he? He's quite raw.
Rawness.
He's loose. He's not loose in a timing sense, but he's not clinical, is he?
I wonder if Terry listened to subsequent XTC albums thinking, I could have done that. Why didn't I instead?
Right.
I'd love to know what he thinks about the session men that came in.
It's interesting you say that, because I think the only album that sounds like it could be Terry was the very last one.
Yeah.
Zaba, yes, exactly. That sounds a bit like Terry.
Yeah, I agree. Playground.
Exactly. Yeah, and Stupidly Happy, things like that. It's like, that could be Terry.
Terry's influences.
Andy told me from the Pink Fairies.
There's not much on him.
I like to see a drummer, and I can't remember his name, from Atomic Rooster. Tomorrow Night.
Paul Hammond.
Yeah.
I loved him. I thought he was
Good
great.
drummer.
Paul Hammond. The reason I bought an England drum kit because of Paul Hammond. Yeah,
we got to Terry that.
Because he's formed another band called Hard Stuff afterwards. Right. And I used to listen to that all the time because it was full of these little short drum fills.
He was so good at that.
And they were brilliant.
He left bits out, didn't he? Boom, boom. It was all, whoa, where's he going with? And he wouldn't put...
Because they were in the era when things like, Yes were beginning to get themselves together.
Yeah,
the early
Bill
sort of
Bruford.
big prog rock bands and...
Terry's influences, anyway. It was Atomic Rooster.
we just found we had a common guy called Paul Hammond, which was a sort of, I suppose that was in the mid-70s sort of prog rock.
Simon Kirk of Three.
I can hear that. Yeah. Now you say that, because Simon Kirk's not the one who digs in.
Well, I think you were saying about Ian Pace. I think Terry was a bit of an Ian Pace fan as well. He liked,
How could you not like him? I mean, he was just...
That was my
just absolutely fabulous.
Listen to the Mule, the drum solo made in Japan.
Yeah.
I'm serious, like bloody light, the Angels came, light shone down into me a drummer, that's it.
He could make it sound like he was gaining pace and intensity and
hence the name.
But he never changed speed, and he would make something sound like, well, we're really going to get going. You know what I mean? He was, and then he'd strip it back, and it would sound like all of a sudden he's like relaxed, and then bang, he's like back.
He could be really jazzy as well.
Oh, well, yes, he could.
Swinging.
Yeah.
No, he was an all-rounder.
Would anyone like to mention a specific XTC song in reference to Terry's playing?
I think Millions.
Well, you mentioned Millions already. I could read out what German drummer and actor, actually, Sebastian Ruger, said about Millions, which is from Drums and Wires. It stands out, actually, talk about, it stands out like the most complicated prog drumming I know because of the syncopation. The rhythm underneath is so going against what the guitar does and the melody does. If you're a more emotional drummer like me, you link yourself to the melodies of the guitars or the vocals, and you are lost with a track like this because it is so austere. I always thought, where's the goddamn one? It's a really complicated song. And then he says his drumming is really mathematical, very powerful.
But it's where he puts a little Chinese splash cymbal in, where you think... Has he got another arm? Because where's he fitting that in? And I asked Andy, did he put that in afterwards? And he said, no, he played it live. Mm-hmm. The splash cymbal, because I never saw them do that live, and I thought, is that because, you can't get that, but no, he played it as is, and it's really...
I mean, for me, it was Plans for Nigel. Yeah. That's what's got me started on that, because it grabs your attention straight away from the work.
Jungle drums.
Drums, I like it. But it just rolled on, didn't it, with that song?
I just thought, Rick, that was the high, that So just sort of thrown in, like, he's playing around the kid, like snares with his foot as he's taking his hand over.
Yeah, no, it's got to be.
Watch him, he does that.
Yeah, it's got to be thrown in, which I thought was really.
He's basically doing. What's he doing? He's doing. But instead of on the snare, he's doing it on the hi-hat, and then the accent on the snare.
Feels like the track starts halfway through. You feel like you've missed the
I'm
not sure where I am.
Yeah,
in this.
it's lovely, isn't it? Because the bass runs down, doesn't it? And you're sort of like that. Where am I? Yeah.
I could throw in Sergeant Rock because of what you were saying before, because I was thinking about Sergeant Rock because of the way that you were talking about that everybody's parts being, and this was true of the jam as well. You take one part out and it doesn't work anymore. I just think Sergeant Rock, whether or not you like the song, it just fits together like clockwork because every part is distinct.
Yeah.
That
it sounds like a tank,
and it all fits together. Maybe not even that complicated. I don't know, but it's not that.
Well, he's playing. That's one common thing on the Lassie album. He plays the hi-hat on the offbeat, a lot on the and.
Sort of disco,
so he plays like almost like matching the melody with a dum, and back on the hi-hat again, opens it up like some disco reggae. Exactly that.
Yeah. Apparently, Andy said he used to listen to lots of disco stuff. Well, that was the drumming to it.
Yeah. Well, my problem was on Generals and Majors. Coming back to that again, because Generals and Majors has got that. Okay, not nearly as fast as that, but reminded me of Heart of Glass by Blondie, which plays that. And that's a repetitive pattern. And he does that kind of like a bit more stretched out on Generals and Majors. And I love the fact that he's taken what could be a disco beat and turned it more of a kind of a new wavy, bit more aggro to it.
And now it's all done by machine, isn't it?
Oh yeah, during the 80s it was dreadful, wasn't it, with all the drum machines playing it. But it was just, I used to like that with you, because that sort of... was typical sort of let's throw one in from the side, which when I sort of took it to extreme off, we did a scrape away. I don't know if you've heard that. And it was like how far can you push this thing of like, because if you know what's going on in your mind, right, I'm going to leave everything out, right? So nobody's going to know what's going on, right? But I've got this metronome going in your head, so you just keep it going. And I think that's great when you like you say you can't hear what the drummer's hearing, so he knows where he's putting stuff. But it's all the stuff that he's keeping secret that makes it sound really odd. What you were saying about all of a sudden you feel like you're going to fall over.
Yeah, that's sort of anticipation as well.
Yeah.
I never felt reggae though, even though there's nothing you go that's reggae.
No, but the guitars are skanking a lot.
Yeah.
I get told off all the time. I said, like coming along to the television.
My missus is exactly the same. Stop it, William.
I've been doing this since I was 14 or something. You can't sort of not do this. Yeah. I've taken to tapping on my head because I can it's only me who hears it. That's why I lost all my hair.
Did you bought a drum kit? Did you make one? Or?
The first one I made.
Yeah, I made my first drum kit.
I made it because I just made the shells and then bought all the hardware and stuff, and that lasted quite a while until I saved up enough money, and then I went and bought the hay.
Oh right,
which was
saved up and
I used to
good loud kits though as well.
Yeah, and sturdy. I mean, it's good kit to take on the road because you knew that it wasn't going to fall to bits on it and stuff.
No.
I used to
apart from skinning your knuckles on the tom pom.
Oh yeah. There was a few bits on it that design-wise weren't particularly great. I was fascinated by the white inside to be reflective.
Yeah, it was Woolworth polyurethane. No, it was.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, there's a book about Heyman, and it came out last year. Bob Henrik co-wrote it.
Bob Henrik, Argent.
And they found a junk shell and they cut it in half and they'd really gone into forensic detail on it, and apparently someone who worked in the factory said, it was, we got polyurethane paint from the same wholesaler as Woolworths.
Because they used to go on about it being a special finish, it was reflective of sound, and of course when you're 16 you're on by that.
Sounds good to me.
Apparently it did work. They used to slap it on really, really thick, and it did harden up the inside.
God knows, I mean, drums, the sound of the drum mostly comes from the shell. I mean, the skin sort of tends to make it sort of resonate, but I mean, a good, a nice thin shell will work.
So the edges are important as well.
Yeah. I mean, Premier used to put an extra rim round for strength. I don't know whether.
Did you play the resonator? Was it the resonator you had for a while? The Premier resonator? With the extra ring inside?
Yeah, I must have been,
yeah. One time. What special brand?
I liked them because they were free.
I was going to ask you about
but other than that, they weren't my kit of choice. Really.
Did they just turn up on the
Keeble of
doorstep?
Spandau Ballet said, I went to Premier because if anything goes wrong, I can drive up to Leicester and they'll fix it.
Yeah.
And come back with it in the back of the car.
They were quite robust. I think they were good on the road. The chrome was good.
Still that old chrome is.
I don't think they were the best sounding kit around.
No.
So what would you have gone for?
Well, I've subsequently, I've had about 50 years, I've had a Ludwig. And it's the same design as it was back in the 60s. And it's just absolutely fabulous.
Where did the idea for the Premier kit with the massive long toms come from?
The vent?
No,
these were really long. They said to me, we make you a custom kit if you like. So I said, all right, well, I want one that long. And I make up my mind on the size of these things. So I sort of, do you remember those really long tube Octabands, people. Yeah, he had some. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try something like that, which is more like a 10-inch, 12-inch, and whatever, and get premiers and make them. But they couldn't make them without them being, they weren't parallel. The heads were like this, as up here more down, because it was just too long. So they made about 12 of them, but only 3 of them were actually any good. And I thought I'd pick a couple. And when they turned up, I thought, bollocks, it was all free.
Because bridge over the...
Yeah, but it became a nightmare because the snare drum's here, and the first tom's up here. You know what I mean?
I remember thinking, how do you play fills? Because you sit down, you
just have to learn to get up there. You know what I mean? I didn't really like.
You used a Yamaha for a fair.
I did have a while, Yamaha. Yeah.
That's on the one that's flying through the air on the cover, is it?
Oh yeah, they hung it from college. Yeah. Yeah, it was good. It was almost too good.
Yeah.
It was so well made that it just used to feed back all the time. With powered monitors, it used to resonate all the time. But really nice.
Did you play live with one kit and then record with another one, or did you always use?
No, it was pretty silly, really. I should have had. Because when I've discovered that if you have a nice small bass drum, it records much bigger sound than a big bass drum. So I mean,
like a cocktail kit size.
Yeah, I should have really got round to that. And, I want my big kit, which was silly because it didn't sound anywhere near as good. I mean, a big bass drum doesn't. It's just, I don't know why. Just the little smaller 18-inch bass drum just sounds much more punchy.
And small toms too, I feel, anyways.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think small toms. I've got a 10 that I can only ever really hear as an effect drum. I have it offset, so it's not the one I go to first. I've got my 12 there. I need my 12 there. If I had the 10 there, it would go clear. But it's quite nice for sort of, quite nice for almost like cymbals. So I play a lot of jazz. But I played a kit recently. The first 10, I thought, you can do anything with this. And it was one of these British Drum Company kits. It's the company that Al Murray's behind. And it's actually Al's kit. And I picked this 10 and I went, Christ, that's got everything. That's got the range. You can tune it up and down. And it's got so much tone, it's rounded edges and all that. And Pete Cater, who's a great jazz drummer, he has just become an endorser of EDC. And he said, right, my little club kit, which is 12, 14, 20, and they built me the Buddy Rich kit, 13, 2 16s and a 24. And he said, I'm basically using the little kit for everything because you can tune it right down. It still sounds big.
Yeah. I think people find their own level with what they want to use. But I mean, that was a bit ridiculous, those long toms. It just became... Nobody could see me from the start, which was probably the best.
I'm here.
Yeah, and the other thing was that it was just ridiculous to get around. It was so...
But Terry had quite deep toms, didn't he? He had a Tama kit with very
well, but the Premier kit that he used on the early stuff, which was in Swindon when we were there in September. I went over and looked at it and I thought, Christ, the first toms are 15. It was 15, a 16-inch floor tom on the bass drum and an 18. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big.
I went, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was in from one of his early kits.
Yeah, it still has the stickers on it saying Portable Kempsters.
Yeah.
There's so many various factors that could culminate in the perfect drum sound. I mean, I've recorded loads of kits, and there is no set rule to a great sounding drum. There are so many variables.
Yeah, I think I must have tried everything at some point. Right? I mean, I ended up with some seducer microphones, which contact microphones on the shells.
Yeah.
So eventually you see the kit, there's no mics.
Did you have an auto tune for a bit as well?
That's the Dallas Arms thing.
Yeah.
That was fiberglass.
Yeah.
That was the worst thing I ever did.
Yeah.
Because all the fittings of this were cast.
Yeah.
So you never know what you're going to end up with at the end of the night. Some of it just drop off all across the stage. And because if it hit the ground, it was like fiberglass bits would chip off a bit and break. It was just
So Ivor Arbiter was mad about boats. And he thought, we can build drums out of this stuff.
Because that was just, you just rotated the hoop and it tuned itself up.
Yeah. In theory.
In theory, yeah. It was all theory and no, it wasn't doing it.
What I think special about Terry Chambers is just his amazing consistency. Absolutely perfect time, absolutely perfect tone, and just, but also he wasn't averse to doing things unconventionally. So you got the Making Plans for Nigel's drum part, which is, backwards to how you'd expect it to start in a different way. And, okay. So, in some ways, he was very conventional. In other ways, he really wasn't. Ringo was the same. You think of Ticket to Ride. Who else would have played that or thought of doing that? And I was in a covers band yesterday, and playing Ticket to Ride is bloody difficult. And when people say, "Ringo's useless," the Ticket to Ride, go away. I think Andy and others have said that there was a certain amount of, what we want you to do is this. And once the information had gone through, Terry had processed it. It was almost like programming a drum machine, a human drum machine. The one drum track that, for me, just stands out, Travels in Nylon, because it's just, that's not a loop, is it? He's playing. He's playing it all the way through. Anyone else would have gone, I'll just loop that. No, he's playing it all the way through. And I bet if you put a metronome up against it, it would not waver. And I dare say it wasn't done with a click. Wouldn't have been done with a click.
I was talking to someone about Travels in Nylon yesterday, and it fade. This is, I don't know if you know the track, Rick. It's the last one on Black Sea. I think they just put him on, on go for 10 minutes, and then
he'd probably been just playing 5 minutes.
Already. It fades in from and then fades out at the end as well. And it's just this machine that he just.
Isn't there one of these where he was in a bad mood and they just said, go in, do it, and take your frustrations out on the drum kit, and whack 7 shades of shit out of it, and they went, that's the tape.
It's interesting, there's a covers band in Australia called Scarecrow People, and they're doing another show in May, and they played the Black Sea album from start to finish, the first set, and they finished off with that. That's the last track on the album, but they had 3 people playing drums on that to get the sound. Yeah, in fact 4 actually. So the drummer, who was fantastic, he plays with Frank Zappa cover band, so he's pretty good. But they had 2 or 3 other drums set around the place to get the sound, to get that sound.
That says everything.
Amazing, but 3 people against 1.
I'll tell you what, talking about Frank Zappa, the way the mind connects things, you just say, right, Frank Zappa, Keep It Greasy's 2116 or something,
exactly,
and then you think, what's English roundabout? That's tricky, and he does it, and you just think, what?
Is it 5/4 or something?
7. It's not. Actually, sounds more like 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's 5.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's 5.
Yeah, it's 5. Actually, 5.
Living in the past.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And actually, I think of all the old time signatures, I think 5 is the most comfortable and natural to play. It's got a natural pull to it.
6 or 7 for me. It was most of the
Really?
I'm just
I always thought 6/8 was something that tumbled along.
Yeah.
But that's got more of a 4. You can't 4 it.
I don't really count even numbers as old time signatures.
I wonder, would Terry? I don't know how technical Terry would be.
Everything that he did must have been just perfectly natural for him. That's what came out of his mind. This is how he created it. He's not being put upon, to do it. He's contributing his part to the band, which I think is what gives it that signature. Yeah. And I think with the whole band, really, I think there's something there for whether you're into guitar playing, even singing. I mean, the singing parts are a bit off the wall, but I mean, none of it is conventional, and I think that's what's really lovely about it. And so I always like the idea of that what he does is totally original.
But he must have been still like on the radio. You absorb stuff by almost by osmosis. Because some of that stuff, I refer to Black Sea because a lot of it's got that sort of. It's almost like disco throwback. What he's made it more of an really 80s sound to it.
He's doing that.
Was he listening? What was he listening to?
That's right. Was he listening to Earth, Wind and Fire, or was he listening to Deep Purple?
Yeah.
Well, they did it apparently in their sound checks. They used to do sheet numbers and all sorts of jazz funky sort of, disco funky sort of songs in the sound checks, just to entertain each other.
Yeah, trying to figure out where he got his ideas from. It's no good just standing outside the studio listening to what he's doing. And do you know what I mean?
There's that lovely drunk tape from the English settlement sessions where they do this take of Whole Lot of Love, Whole Lot of Age. And Partridge is there singing, "You got so many leg irons, it's not true." And Terry's giving it some Bonham in the background, but they're all absolutely off their faces. Rob with 6X. It's on the run out group, what is 6X forever? And it's just... And it's a great thing. It breaks down, but the power is there. I don't think, when I met Terry in September, and he's back playing now, I said to him, "So what are you playing at the moment? What kit have you got?" He said, I've gone vintage mad." And Colin was sitting there and said, "Yeah, he's never off eBay."
So he's ordering out here?
Yes. I said,
wooden.
He said, I said, "So what's the main thing at the moment?" He says, "I'm using a Beverley." "Car's lovely, okay." Yeah. He said, "I've just got a John Gray Autocrat snare drum coming through, and I've got a couple of Olympics as well." And he's really gone back to, I suppose, because he's not touring, so he hasn't got to have something that holds up fantastically well, so you can use anything. I think, and also the old drums, all those Beverleys and Olympics and whatever, are so light. It just makes such a difference.
Can I change the conversation to a particular XTC song? I'm going to be nice, particularly because it's Debbie Peterson out of the Bangles Blues Responded. I'm pretty pleased to get her. She chooses Rocket from a Bottle from Black Sea. She says one of my fave drum parts is Rocket from a Bottle. I love the use of the toms with the bass and the hi-hat that sneaks in once in a while. I was very much influenced by him. In fact, in the 80s and 90s, and still today, I'll admit, I would drum along to XTC songs to warm up. It was very inspiring to me.
That's lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
Anybody want to add anything about Rocket from a Bottle?
Yeah, it's booming good.
It's good.
But it's also got that slightly backwards feel like Nigel, hasn't it?
Well, because he accents, because it sounds like the fizz of a rocket taking off, doesn't it? With the hi-hat chokes and stuff. Yeah. It's very clever. It's illustrative. It's illustrative drum. The fact that I don't know whether Andy would have said, "Oh, could you put some chokes in there to make it fizz like the rockets, setting off?"
Yeah, so I think things like that I think are interesting when, especially from drums, because it's a lot. I think it's a lot more difficult. If you hear a lyric. And you think, well, how can you get something to sort of illustrate the lyric with drums? I mean, I think that's quite...
And you were saying about colour, I think...
Yeah. I mean, it's easy if you're talking about a train. You think, well, okay, you can make drums sound like a train. But if you wanted to, like, with a rocket thing, that's a different sort of problem altogether. But I think it's nice to think about that. How does it bring this thing into your visual mind? The sound of it actually brings up conjures up this vision of what the lyrics trying to say. I think that's quite clever as well, especially if it works. You listen to it and you can see something rather than just.
I think because Andy's very visual as well. I'm sure he would have discussed that with Terry.
I think what happened later is that Andy would program drum parts in his shed and then have to explain them to. There's the video, isn't there, of them in the studio with Dave Mattox. Dave Mattox is going, and there's also the disappointment which Dave hated playing. because there is that offbeat shuffle. And you have to set up an X hat over there to make it comfortable.
Yeah.
Because it's the thing I was dreading most.
Yeah.
But, oh yeah. But yeah.
It was interesting. The Disappointed.
Yeah.
Andy said to me that Dave Mattox could only do it for about 8 bars. So he did 8 bars and then they looped it.
Wow.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So that weird looping.
Yeah.
It looks weird when you see him do it.
Yeah.
It's like something's gone out of phase.
Yeah.
So I had to loop him.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone as good as Dave Mattox as well.
It's really surprising.
I suspect it's just easy.
And the thing is, someone like Dave is an absolutely shit hot reader as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, you could put the fly shit in front of him and he'd do that. But Andy wouldn't be in a position to write him a drum part. So he had to go through it and say, do this, that.
No, but shuffles are difficult.
Yeah.
They are difficult. Did you do shuffly stuff?
Not really.
Jam?
It's nice to get the opportunity to do that. I mean, in some ways, what we were doing musically was pretty much down the line. It wasn't as experimental as you might think. We didn't think it was. It wasn't particularly off the wall. There were occasions where chances to do things that were a bit off the wall. I mean, again, going back to being, you know, envious of XTC, everything they seemed to do was, you know, pushing boundaries. And,
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's what fans like. There's no one album was the same. It was, you know, I didn't want to hear the same album again. I wanted to hear something different. And they were the band to do
I think it's dreadful to rest on your laurels in that respect.
Yeah.
I think one thing that you had in common, though, was that you were both getting into the studio at the same time. And there was all this, it was getting away from the gaffer tape and fag packets and dead budgies and all that. And putting your wallet on the snare drum. And you were getting into the big drum sounds. And really, I mean, did you use the Stone Room at Townhouse?
Yeah, we did. We were talking about earlier. I mean, that was a real asset. That sort of room was really lovely because it was so lively. I mean, we were, you know, predominantly a live band, so we immediately, well, I certainly immediately took to that sort of sound, because it just added so much to it. We were never really a studio band in that sense. So it was nice to sort of go into somewhere that you know, that suited the way that we did things.
Was that even true with something like Starch, which has that arresting,
the fill into the
man sort of air of things? It's definitely
on Start. It's the fill into the solo.
Yeah. I love the song. I mean, it's just such a compact little song. Quite easy. There's nothing.
But just that double snare is going back to the 60s somehow, you know.
Yeah. I did nick that thing of like opening the hi-hat on the snare beat from Queen. Because they did it on Killer Queen, I think. That was the little influence that I like that.
Which in a way almost does the sort of compressed, gated reverb sound, but does it acoustically. Rather than processing it. It gives you that decay, that thump.
Did you ever hear the dub album that Andy Partridge did? It was mainly based on Drums and Wires. It was called Takeaway, the Law of Salvage. No, maybe Paul Laurie had heard it, because Andy on Twitter said that Paul had told him that it was influential because what he did, he went into the studio with Drums and Wires and just mucked around with the faders and
with the mock tracks,
speeding things up,
dub version,
putting loads of dub sort of stuff.
So was Terry involved in Dukes of the Stratosphere?
No, he'd gone by that time.
That was gone.
Yeah, well, that's Dave Gregory's brother who was in that.
Oh, okay, no, because that's another really weird offshoot.
Yeah. Sorry. And part of the thing that makes them interesting as a band, that they were prepared to go and pretend to be a completely different.
Let's pretend to be someone else. That's a great idea.
I was listening to your version of Davey Watch yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think. Well, I was just thinking about, you know, the people that the Kinks have influenced. I mean, obviously they, you know, it's as the years have gone by, people have realised that they had a bigger influence on bands than they probably envisioned at the time in the 60s. I'm just thinking, you know, probably the same would go for XTC as well. That about secretly, I think everybody's a little bit of an XTC lover in there. Do you know what I mean?
But they're not cool, you see. So
for some people they are, and some people I think they're not.
And also, I think with XTC, and coming back to Squeeze again, I think through repetition and hearing the songs that weren't necessarily hits are incredibly well known. And when you say to someone, oh, Tempted never made the top 40, and you go, what?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Is that true?
The number of times you see,
I think it got 41.
the number of times you see making plans for Nigel in like a sports headline or something because there's a player called Nigel.
There's so much awareness.
And yet it got to number 14, so it doesn't have to be a number one.
No. Also, going back to the Kinks and keeping it on drumming, I think that Mick Avery is one of the great underrated drummers.
Yeah, really swingy.
Oh, God, yeah.
Very swingy, isn't he?
Village Green Preservation Society, what he's doing underneath all that is cracking stuff. Yeah. No,
what was the show maker? So what was the highest XTC ever got in terms of
10 senses?
Oh, really?
And you know, in my mind, that's a number one. But
it paid for Andy's kitchen.
I mean, it was so important in that era
Yeah.
to get a chart position of some sort. The record companies were always pushing for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the end all of everything. We never saw it as an end all.
But you'd be on tour somewhere and you'd be on the bus and you'd hear, oh, we're at number 2. Or
yeah, people will ring you up and will send you telegrams and things. So you've reached this.
Telegrams.
Yeah, spell your name wrong and stuff like that.
Did you get a bell?
Not start. Start is in the charts. Stop.
Stop starting. Yeah.
Don't stop starting, man.
What's Terry's and Andy's relationship, if there is one, or
Terry seems to be the missing link between everybody, doesn't he? He's the one who
Everyone gets on.
He can get on with them all. Yeah.
is that the drummer's role? Because that tends to be quite a the
were
drum
you,
seems to get
were
on.
you the in-betweener?
Yeah. It's an odd thing with drummers because you can only talk to yourself, can't you? You can't talk guitars. You can't. There's only one of you. It's such a sad existence. I think that's why when you get like a load of drummers together, that's it. It's just you just indulge yourself, don't you? Yeah.
Did you go off with Bruce and do the sort of rhythmic stuff? Because I know Terry and Colin used to go off and work on their bit.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Separately.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, silly thing, we never thought about it at the time, but I mean, Paul used to want to have to go home and watch Coronation Street in the evenings, you know what I mean? So me and Bruce used to stay on in the evenings and work out all the rhythm parts and backing tracks. Yeah. Then in the morning...
So it knitted.
Yeah, so in the morning it was like everything was ready so that we could just need to do the time from the start.
I think in every band I've been in, the bassist has been my mate.
Yeah.
I think drummers and bass players do tend to sort of stick together.
Yeah, I think you have this. You work quite closely together, really, on it. At least there's some sort of connection there.
Yeah.
Is it hard being kind of a 3-piece?
Well, we always wanted to be a 4-piece, so we were struggling. So we always pretended we were a 4-piece.
What would you have got
as a 3-piece? So we're filling all the gaps. Do you know what I mean? And
what would you have got in? A keyboard player or?
Well, we did.
Guitarist?
We did. We got. We never got another guitarist. We got a keyboard player to come and do live stuff because things like Tangle Manage you can't do without.
Yeah.
We got trumpet players in. We got backing vocals. So live, you could sort of create this other thing.
Yeah.
But it was difficult. I don't know what it was. Nobody liked us, but every time we got a 4th member, they only stayed for 2 or 3 gigs, and they'd be off.
When you were growing up, did you sort of listen to things like the Shadows and all that?
No, because we all come from different worlds, really. I mean, when my mates were very much into sort of prog rock in the mid-70s. That was what we used to buy albums and swap them around.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Deep Purple and David Bowie's and Led Zeppelin's, and those sort of things. When I come across Paul, it's for the first time. He was going back 10 years.
Yeah.
He was listening to Chuck Berry and very much got into the Gets because of that, and his dad was an old rock and roller, so there was a lot of Proud Marys, Johnny B. Goods and stuff like that thrown in, which we sort of took to. So it was a real mismatch of musical influences, if you like.
Yeah.
But I mean, but because we started as a band together, and we just grew musically. We did for years, for at least about 5 or 6 years, we were a covers band. So we played every song that everybody knew.
Like, Feel Good were a big influence on the jam.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, because we just thought
pub rock.
Yeah, well, that's it. When we moved into the pub rock thing in London, we fitted in great because we could do loads of these rock and roll standards quite well.
Thank you all very much for your contributions about Terry, because that was all fantastic. This was such a good I am really looking forward to transcribing it all.
What do you call that noise?
Thank you to the many people who contributed to this episode. They include Keith McTaggart, Mark Thomas, Andy Rankin, Laurie Langan, Sarah Palmer, Rohan Onraet, and Louis Barfe. And thank you to the many wonderful podcast supporters on Patreon who include the following Knights in Shining Karma: Terry Arnett, Kevin Burt, Lorenzo Chachi, Cale Corbett, Liam Duggan, Jamie Dunn, Alison Eels, Jeff Farris, Mike Grafe, Robert Graham, Camille Henry, Stephen Hope, Alan Hughes, Rick James, Peter Kitchen, Marek Kraus, Jesper Kumberg, Robert Lawlaw, Adrian Loon, Liz Lynch, Murray Meikle, Youssef Murrah, Max Nyaho, Amy Parkinson, Tim Parsons, Mark Reed, James Reimer, Jaime Ross de Mora, Michael Sutcliffe, Steve Swift, Mark Thomas, Nigel Waller, John Wedemeyer, Lucy Verbitsky, and Martin Whitley. That's all for now. See you next time.